I mean, there's been another Apple event, which
Yes.
is there like I'm pretty sure, because they've obviously gone to a new format, but
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a year with this many Apple events, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm well, sorry. Year I don't know, but definitely fall season. There's never been this many. I mean,
Yeah, I guess
I would think
they like the beginning of this year was a little bit quiet, but
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm loving these shorter, more focused events.
Yes.
Compared to how they kind of previously bundled everything together. But yeah, that's probably the noteworthy. I don't know if you had anything on your list of things to talk about regarding that event, but
Well, I think the interesting thing is of all the events this year, and maybe for the last 3 or 4 years, I don't know if it's surprisingly or not surprisingly, but this for sure was the most exciting one for me.
interesting.
I wonder if it's just because like I'm in a buying cycle where I don't really need a new phone, don't really need a new iPad, and none of the features that have been coming out on phones and iPads and all this stuff have been crazy significant to make me be like, oh my god, I need that.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas my computer is super old. Well, not super old. It's 5 years old now. Which is relatively old in computer talk.
Yeah.
And I'm actually like seriously in the market for this. So
Yeah.
so FDK, I run a software company, and I'm actually considering getting myself and one of my other staff one of these new MacBooks. So keeping an eye on our finances a little bit. But what I think the most exciting part for me is that, obviously every year there's upgrades. And obviously every year, even with upgrades, the price stays the same. But this seems to be like a significant upgrade and the price stayed the same. Right? Like I was fully expecting that with all the craziness and how much more performant these MacBooks are, I was expecting at least a couple $100 bump in price or whatever. The fact that they're the exact same price really made that attractive to me, where I was like, man, I should seriously consider getting one of these laptops. So it was definitely, I was pretty pumped. I was like, and again, it might be just the buying cycle I'm in, but I can't remember the last event where I was this excited about it. I guess the iPhone 12 was kind of exciting, but yeah, I was pretty excited. How about you? What was your
So I mean, I
thoughts?
guess to recap, for those that did not watch,
Yes.
this
FTW.
event, which I think was 45. It wasn't very long, 45 minutes, was all about Mac, and so they had a few new Mac devices that they announced. But really, what this event was their first big kind of announcements of these new devices with processors and chips and CPUs that they are making now in house rather than using Intel based CPUs. So super nerdy, but it's a pretty big shift, right? Because for the last, I don't know, when did they switch from the PowerBook architecture? How long ago was that?
It would have been like 2006 or 7, somewhere around there, or maybe 2005. Or
So
no,
which is crazy.
anyway, somewhere
That's
like early 2000s,
15
yeah,
years or something, right? So,
Yeah.
pretty big shift because they've basically gone from relying on Intel for these CPUs to making their own, which they have done for a while in their phones and iPads and a few other devices. So they're really using a lot of the same processes and technologies from that, and now they're putting it in computers. So, which is a big deal, right? I think the thing about this event was that it's exciting, right? They're calling this new chip the M1, and it's exciting because it's a start of a whole new thing. And what's kind of cool, it seems like they're actually investing now in devices that previously were kind of dead, like the Mac Mini. I feel for a good time period, you're like, are they going to kill that off? Like, what are they doing with this thing? But now it's just because it has this chip, it almost seems like they're like reviving it, right? So I think
Well, not to mention, like, I think one of the interesting things about what happened was that, like, all of a sudden the gap between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro shrunk like crazy, because it's like they're introducing this one chip, right? Like, granted, there's like the MacBook Air has like the 7-core GPU versus the 8-core GPU,
Yeah.
but it's basically the same chip. So it's kind of like like, you know, used to be like some of the big differentiators were like, oh, you'd have like the dual core Intel in the MacBook Air, and then you have quad core, you know, higher clock speeds on the higher end MacBook Pros. But because just the fact that they're introducing one chip today, I know there's going to be more chips in the future, and the fact that they put it in both the Air and the Pro, what's kind of cool about all this, and I think this is like, I don't think we're really going to hit this time again because unless they transition to something else. But this is probably going to be one of the biggest leaps for the entry level stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
they didn't even replace the like. So the one gripe that I have is going on Apple's website. It is a bit confusing going to these product pages what the purchase decision is, because
Yeah.
they still have some of the Intel based
Yeah.
models, and it seems, and I couldn't really confirm this because again, our amazing research skills for this podcast. But the higher end, like essentially the higher end models are still Intel based, right?
Yes, exactly.
And I assume, because I don't know why they would be still on the site, but I assume the higher end Intel model is still faster than the lower end.
But this is the
M1,
interesting
but
thing.
no one is saying for sure, and Apple is
Yeah.
not saying for sure. But there are, like, I mean, definitely they are like the new devices are definitely lower end by other attributes too, right? Less ports, less like
Yes,
there's
yes.
less hard drive space, less memory, etc. But this is that weird transition period where they still have like some of the old devices.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is good that they kind of focus on those entry level devices.
Well, it's crazy too because like I'm very curious to see the tests, like what's going to happen, and my suspicion is that in certain cases, I would not be surprised if the cheaper like M1 actually outperforms the higher end Intels.
Well, I think there's one area that, to be honest, this is for. I mean, this year I have not experienced this because I have not actually. I don't remember the last time I brought my laptop somewhere. But
Yeah.
the biggest performance difference is the battery life. I don't know if you
Oh, it's crazy.
saw the rated battery life, but the numbers don't even seem real. And
Yeah.
there's
20,
no way
20 hours on the Pro and
Yeah.
17 on the Air, which is like insane.
and that's just so that alone, right? I think is the main reason to buy one of these. I don't know why you buy
Yeah.
you know, the Intel models, just because, you know, you're getting a few hours better battery life, and
Yeah.
that seems to be the killer feature, right? Like I haven't looked really at laptops in a while, but I'm pretty sure there's very few laptops out there that have a 20-hour battery life in that size, right?
Yeah, yeah. I know. I think. Yeah. Actually, it's a good question. I can't remember what they claimed, if it was like the longest battery life in a thin and light laptop, or if it's the longest battery life ever. Because I don't think I've ever heard a claim of 20-hour battery life on anything.
Yeah,
Like that.
and
that's
these, yeah, and these aren't, you know, these aren't kind of like slow machines, right? Like these
No.
are pretty serious. Like you know, they can even the MacBook Air now can run the 6K XDR display that Apple sells,
Yeah,
which is
right?
kind of insane.
And it can edit 4K.
yeah,
You know, yeah, it's crazy. It's really like it. I mean, it's kind of one of these things where I feel like just the nature that the technology is completely switched, that it's kind of like, again, light bulbs going to LED light bulbs, right? It's just a completely different technology. I know Apple Silicon's not completely different technology, but I mean, it's like, it's rather than trying to just evolve an existing system, you're going a completely different system, right?
Yeah.
And like LED, it's like, it's not too good to be true. It's just a completely different technology, and that's why it's more efficient and brighter.
yeah,
Right? Like, how can something
Yeah.
lower power be brighter? Well, it's just a different technology, right? And so that's why I wouldn't be surprised if this thing actually outperforms some of the more expensive Intel Mac, and it would be such a great, you know, story, like, for them to tell. But obviously they can't outright say that, because they don't want to
Yeah.
burn their bridges with Intel, and they also have a stock of Intel laptops that they want to sell still, right?
yeah, yeah. It's definitely interesting. I think you know, the again, they've been doing this. They've been doing this for a while with their phones and their iPads, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, it's just so interesting how, again, like you said, I think excitement is all relative, right? And I think, you know, if you if your phone was as old as your computer, I'm sure you would be just excited about the
Yeah.
iPhone, like the
Yeah,
iPhone
yeah,
event,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But they've been doing this crazy low power tech because again, Apple has been miles ahead in terms of their metric. I think is how much performance do you get per watt, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because anyone can make something fast, right? But making it small and energy efficient
Yeah.
at the same speed, that's a big challenge. And so, like it's almost like we've gotten desensitized to how good their phones and their iPads are. Right?
Yeah.
Now
Well,
that you're seeing that for the first time in computers, it's interesting how even though it really is not that groundbreaking, because if anything, the fact that like the iPhone 12 Pro Max or whatever
Yeah, 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 yeah.
is probably still faster than most of their laptops, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
insane. And if anything, that's even more impressive, right?
Yeah.
But because that's just like the norm now, and
Yep.
they've been doing that for a while, it's not anything exciting or groundbreaking. But now that you're seeing how big the shift is from like an old architecture to new architecture, right? It is
Yeah.
exciting to see that. And again, it's M1, right? Like on the iPhones, what are they up to now? Like A14 or something? Like
Yeah,
A-
exactly, exactly.
So I mean, that itself is exciting. If this is the first one, like
Yeah.
what is the like 5th, 10th, 20th one going to be like?
But I also think though, like I think those jumps are going to feel smaller, right? I feel like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the initial like
Whether
the next-
whether they actually are or not, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a perception. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like that's why it's kind of exciting right now is that it feels like ever since pretty much the iPhone came out, every iteration has felt basically incremental, even though they did make some big leaps, don't get me wrong. But this is like kind of like the first like really new thing in computers like for them for a really long time, because computers have been like, well, I shouldn't say that because the new Mac Pro was pretty crazy when that came out. That was a pretty big revolution. But like,
Yeah.
I feel like something that's revolutionary that I would actually buy and be able to afford, because I can't afford the Mac Pro, right? So it's like, something that's in the grasp of something that would actually affect my day-to-day life. So it was very exciting, and I feel like right now the next year or so is going to be pretty exciting with all these Apple Silicon chips coming out. And after that, it's going to kind of go back to incremental updates or whatever. Even though you're right, like it could be a massive leap, but it's just that perception of like, wow, what a change, right? That's gone to this, right? So